And you know this for a fact since the facts and evidences will clearly show that as soon as I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, I could not even go to the community pool anymore. I couldn't, like, even though it was for free, I did not go in there anymore because I gained mental maturity as a child, and I realized the fact that, you know, my mother was working really hard at fast food restaurants, which I did not realize as a child. So basically, my mother would leave me behind with anyone willing to watch me while she would go work at fast food restaurants. And you know for a fact that I'm telling the truth on this due to the fact that my mother would never be present there. She would never be present there while I would be watched and adult supervised by someone when I was a child. And so basically, the thing about it is just the fact that uh, you have to understand the fact that children are not held liable under the law. So if anyone did say anything bad around me as a child, um, I cannot be held liable for it as a child. The people that would be held liable would be the adult who would say something bad around me as a child, along with law enforcement who would know about it, would do absolutely nothing except for run sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws starting the year 2001 that continued on till this very day today. Or the adult who say, or law enforcement, same law enforcement who ran money fraud that's being run today, that's been run for years and years. So basically, the only talking point that law enforcement now has is to try to claim that someone said something bad around me as a child. Why do I know this? Because the entire year of 2025, they found absolutely nothing against me. And when law enforcement tried to fabricate things against me starting November 20th, 2025, and then more fabricated false testimonies like mid-January 2026 with a 10-year-old child claiming 25 years later that I might have said something bad around him, all of which have been found to be completely fabricated, along with law enforcement even trying to get a group chat false testimony from my overseas pharmacy school, clearly showing exactly how desperate they are to try to frame me. Now, the thing about it is just the fact that, you know, this clearly shows that fabrications are not going to work anymore. No one's going to buy a false testimony coming from law enforcement anymore. And everyone knows about the fact that the entire year of 2025, law enforcement found absolutely nothing against me at all. They found absolutely nothing against me, which means that I did absolutely nothing bad my entire life. And the thing about it is just the fact that it's just the fact that they're drugging me a lot. I'm sorry, they're forcing me to forget things and things of that sort of nature. It's just the fact that children are not held liable under the law. So even if someone did say something bad around me as a child, you have to remember this is saying and not doing. What my dad was doing in 2011 was he was recruiting people for mass murder from his house by giving sermons to them every single day. And that's only one of the very few times that I've ever met him in my life. He was giving sermons about mass murdering people every single day from his house, and until law enforcement basically tipped him off and told him to not do this anymore. And basically, law enforcement basically tipped him off and told him to not do this anymore in front of me. The only reason that they did that was because law enforcement were running their sex schemes and money fraud. They thought that this was a nuisance and a distraction from their actual work. This is not how law enforcement was supposed to handle this situation. They were supposed to send someone in to try to check to see if this man was really sending people to terror groups or he was really recruiting people for mass murder of innocent human beings, which my dad, the Greedy Framer, was in the year 2011. Law enforcement could not care less. Instead, they just tipped him off and went about their way. A person who was recruiting people for mass murder every single day suddenly stopped one day, which clearly meant that he was tipped off by law enforcement, something he was not supposed to be doing in the first place, which means that my dad, the Greedy Framer, was doing and not saying in the year 2011. So basically, the thing about it is just the fact that even if someone did say anything bad around me as a child, they're making me forget things using these drugs. Sorry. Even if someone did say something bad around me as a child, you have to remember the fact that this is saying and not doing. And what my dad was doing in 2011 was he was recruiting people for mass murder, which law enforcement handled by tipping him off instead of investigating or finding out exactly what he was trying to do in 2011. So basically, you have to remember the fact that the only talking point that law enforcement now has is by saying that someone might have said something about me, by saying that someone said something around me as a child. The things that I could guarantee the courts is the fact that my mother would never be present around me if someone did say something bad around me as a child. If she would be present, she would never let me around that setting ever again. Just like how my mother said in the year 20, from my phone conversation from Russia, where she talked about what Uncle Joey did, and I never again was I ever again present around Uncle Joey ever again. And the facts and evidences will show that despite law enforcement trying very hard to try to get me near Uncle Joey multiple times in my life, I would never be present around him ever again since I was a child and he was caught with his online chat. And so the thing that I have to let the courts know is there are certain things I could guarantee about this, just like how I could guarantee certain things about the wedding incident that law enforcement tried to frame me for in the year 2023. The things that I could guarantee would be that I was not present at that wedding. How do I know this? Because ever since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I was not present anywhere I was not present anywhere due to my mother not being able to afford to do so. And no one ever whispered anything to me, and nor did I speak of it ever in my life. Due to the fact that, they're using drugs on me to make me forget. So nor did I ever speak of it since no one ever told me. Basically, due to my mother working at fast food restaurants, I could not afford to go meet with people or find out about whatever the heck it is that happened at this wedding. No one ever told me. So these are things I could guarantee, that I had nothing to do with this wedding incident, and this wedding incident from 2023 clearly proves to the court the point that I am telling the truth about the fact that I could not afford to go anywhere, and the people who could would be adults like Sohaib and Asad, and they would never be questioned about a single thing related to anything at all. And not only this, law enforcement the entire time in 2023 was running sex schemes and money fraud the entire time. And so the thing about it is just the fact that law enforcement was running sex schemes and money fraud the entire year of 2023 while trying to frame me for a wedding incident that I clearly had absolutely nothing to do with. Which clearly proves my point that I could not afford to go anywhere due to my mother working in fast food restaurants, whether it was Asad's sister's wedding in 2003 or any other one. And that these adults in the family, just like how they tried on November 20th, all of them were trying to frame me, despite adults like Asad and Sohaib always being present at every wedding, never questioned about a single thing, only to try to frame me in the year 2023 while law enforcement were running their sex schemes with Uncle Joey in November 2023, along with money fraud throughout the entire year of 2023. This means that, So this basically means that they're making me forget again that the wedding incident that law enforcement tried to frame me for in the year 2023 clearly proves the fact that I'm telling the truth about the fact that I could not afford to be anywhere. And after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, I never was present anywhere, and I was never told about anything even remotely considered bad, because I could not afford to be near anyone who could tell me anything. Now, the thing about it is just the fact that Yeah, they're making me forget again. So that the wedding incident basically proves that I'm telling the truth about not being able to afford to go anywhere, due to which I was never present anywhere after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity. The other thing that I really have to talk about is the fact that the only talking point left for law enforcement is them claiming that when I was a child, someone might have said something bad around me. That is the only talking point that they have. Why? Because they found absolutely nothing against me the entire year of 2025. And starting November 20th, 2025, they started fabricating false testimonies against me that were all caught one after the other. All of these false testimonies were caught one after the other. Which basically means that they have nothing against me throughout the entire year of 2025, and the false testimonies that they try to fabricate against me starting November 20th, 2025 were all caught. November 20th, 2025 was caught. Mid-January 2026 with the child testifying 25 years later that I said something bad around him as a child was caught. Group chat false testimony was caught coming out of my overseas pharmacy school, which clearly shows that law enforcement was operating overseas as well to try to frame me. Other than this, my dad's lies were caught early March 2026, and then he tried to get me to commit incest with his ugly sister, Farah the Framer, on March 7th 3 times, just like how he did February 11th after midnight. And then he tried to get me to commit incest with his ugly, fat sister, Afreen the Greedy Framer, on March 10th. And afterwards, he tried to get me to commit incest with his ugly old wife on March 12th, only because too many of his lies were caught now. But then when he saw that I was not buying it, these things were incredibly disgusting and I'm not interested, he tried more lies that the courts were forced to retrieve phone conversations for. The reason this was going on is due to the fact that he wanted illegal assurances of money from me, basically 8.9 million euro mansion that he tried to blackmail me with price tags of 8.9 million euros 19 times on the morning of February 19th. And this all started after February 17th at 3:02 a.m. after my dad was told that my brain savant getting freed was inevitable, due to which he greedily tried to get all this money for himself, which I will not give him a single penny of, you could rest assured. The other thing that I have to let the courts know about is the fact that people like my dad, the Greedy Framer, or Junaid would be given these talking points to give their opinions on me about. The thing about it is just the fact that the reason these talking points are being given to other people is due to the fact that since I was a child, when anyone could have said around me anything bad, even remotely considered bad, I cannot be held liable under the law. My mother would not be present there since she was a single mother working at fast food restaurants. And the only reason I would even be there is due to the fact that my mother was working in fast food restaurants and she had no one else to watch me. And so basically I was a child at that time, and children are not held liable under the law. I'm sorry, they're drugging me. And so law enforcement cannot use these talking points themselves since I grew up as a child. Even when I had the slightest bit of mental maturity, I was never present anywhere where anything even remotely considered bad could be said around me. And if someone said something bad around me as a child, I can guarantee the courts my mother would not be present there, since she could not be at two places at once. And if she was leaving me behind with anyone willing to watch me as a child, she was obviously working at fast food restaurants. And if she was working at fast food restaurants and she would not be present there, then that means she's not held liable. I'm not held liable because I'm a child, which means that the adult saying something bad would be held liable. And also the other person who would be held liable would be law enforcement, and law enforcement has done absolutely nothing but run sex schemes since 2001 and money fraud that are still being run till this very day today. Now, you have to be reminded about the fact that this is saying and not doing. And what my dad was doing in 2011 was he was recruiting people for mass murder of innocent human beings, because people think that this man who was trying to get me to commit incest with his sisters on March 7th, February 11th, and his ugly old other one on March 10th, or trying to get me to sleep with his ugly old wife on March 12th, is some sort of man with mystical powers able to get people's prayers accepted. And people would go to him and he would give sermons in 2011. Every single day he would give a sermon on mass murder of innocent human beings. And the thing about it is just the fact that sermons on mass murder of innocent human beings, so that is doing and not saying, and that is doing as an adult with me being present there. I should have reported it, but I didn't. My fault. But the thing about it is, when I was a child, if anyone said anything, it would be saying and not doing, which is what my dad was doing in 2011. Now, the thing about it is, if someone did say something bad around me as a child, I would not be held liable since I was a child. My mother would not be held liable since the only reason I would be there is due to the fact that my mother was working at fast food restaurants. And she couldn't leave me at home alone, like how she said on February 15th, 2026 at around 8 p.m. Without me actually trying to tell her what the right or wrong answer was. And due to the fact that children are not held liable under the law, so basically, children are not held liable under the law. They're making me forget again. Which basically just means that I'm not held liable. My mother's not, because she would never be present there. And if she would be, then this would be the last time I would ever see or be in this setting ever again. Which is exactly what happened after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child. I was never present anywhere even remotely considered where anything even remotely considered bad could ever be said around me ever again. Which means that this talking point by law enforcement cannot be used by law enforcement, since obviously the law enforcement would be using it since they found absolutely nothing throughout the entire year of 2025 against me, since I've done absolutely nothing but work hard my entire life, nor can they use it since, and also the fact that they're using it is due to the fact that no more false testimonies by them. Too many caught. November 20th created mass panic and chaos in the news media. Law enforcement knew about it before I even went to Russia. And then you had mid-January 2026, the 10-year-old child claiming 25 years later that I said anti-government things to him. And then you had early March 2026, you had all these false testimonies being made by law enforcement over and over and over and over again, with the group chat false testimony coming out of my overseas pharmacy school. We know for a fact that law enforcement cannot make any more false testimonies, nor have they found anything against me, which means that this thing that law enforcement is trying to use against me, where someone might have said something bad around me as a child, is their only last option. And I know for a fact that this is the only thing that they can use around me, since the war occurred when I was a child, and obviously someone could have said something bad around me as a child. What I can guarantee is that my mother, it would never be my mother, since my mother has never uttered one word considered bad her entire life. And one word considered bad her entire life. And the thing about it is just the fact that my mother would also never be present there, because if she would, then that would be Uncle Joey's incident, and I would never see this person ever again, because my mother could not be present at two places at one time. The only point of me being there was due to the fact that my mother was working in fast food restaurants, and she could not leave me at home alone, like how she said on February 15th at 8 p.m. So basically, this talking point by law enforcement is the only thing they have. Since the war occurred when I was an 11-year-old child, and my mother would have to leave me behind with anyone willing to watch me as a child, since she had to work at fast food restaurants. And anyone could have said something bad around me, which is the only thing that law enforcement can use now, since they found absolutely nothing against me throughout the entire year of 2025. And all their false testimonies, including the one on November 20th, 2025, with my dad, the greedy framer, and his framer sisters, was caught after creating mass panic and chaos in the news media. The one in mid-January 2026 was caught with a 10-year-old child testifying 25 years later that I said something bad around him as a child in elementary school. My dad's lies from early March 2026 were caught, because his framer sisters realized that the only reason that November 20th was not being believed in was because the person handling the fabrication material was the government informant, which means that now that these lies were caught, because the ones from early March 2026 were all obviously confessed to the government informant as being more lies that they were planning on using against me after November 20th, which meant that since that was the government informant, they had to let go of these lies, which meant that they tried incest and they tried to get me to marry their daughter's spokesperson's mother and Farrah the Greedy Framer, incest with Farrah the Greedy Framer on March 7th and also February 11th, 2026 after midnight, 3:17 a.m. Also incest with his ugly old other white sister, one sister on ugly old sister on March 7th, Farrah the Greedy Framer, 3 times, along with Farrah the Greedy Framer again, February 11th, 3:17 a.m. Using porn star's picture, Sunny Leone with Farrah's name on it, March 10th, 2026, with his other big fat ugly old sister, Afreen the Greedy Framer, and so these were all caught. I mean, yeah. So he was trying through law enforcement, and even his ugly old wife on March 12th, 2026. You do not want to know how this woman looks like. She's extremely ugly. And obviously he tried everything after he was caught with more lies early March because he didn't think his lies could be believed in anymore. But the courts, I don't know why, they are being played for a fool, gave him another chance, because of which he was making even more lies, due to which they were forced to retrieve phone conversations. And so basically, there's nothing found against me throughout the entire year of 2025. All the false testimonies have been caught, which means that there's no more room for any more false testimonies. So now the only thing that law enforcement now has are talking points about someone saying something bad around me as a child,